Today we'll be covering Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, Text 41. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I'll read the Sanskrit. This is again 1941. Actually, I'm gonna share my screen really quickly. Sorry. Okay. Muniganandripa Varya Sankulenta Sadashi Yudhishthira Rajasuya Esham Arhanam Upapeda Ikshaniyo Mamadrishi Gochara Esha Avir Atma. Word for word. Munigana, the great learned sages. Nripa Varya, the great ruling kings. Shankule, in the great assembly of. Antasadasi, conference. Yudhishthira, of Emperor Yudhishthira. Rajasuye, a royal performance of sacrifice. Esham, of all the great elites. Arhanam, respectful worship. Upapeda, received. Ikshaniya, the object of attraction. Mama, my. Drishi, sight. Gochara, within the view of. Esha avi, personally present. Atma, the soul. Translation. At the Rajasuya Yajna sacrifice performed by Maharaj Yudhishthira, there was the greatest assembly of all the elite men of the world, the royal and learned orders, and in that great assembly, Lord Sri Krishna was worshipped by one and all as the most exalted personality of Godhead. This happened during my presence, and I remembered the incident in order to keep my mind upon the Lord. Purport. After gaining victory in the battle of Kurukshetra, Maharaj Yudhishthira, the emperor of the world, performed the Rajasuya sacrificial ceremony. The emperor in those days, upon his ascendance to the throne, would send a challenge horse all over the world to declare his supremacy, and any ruling prince or king was at liberty to accept the challenge and express his tacit willingness either to obey or to disobey the supremacy of the particular emperor. One who accepted the challenge had to fight with the emperor and establish his own supremacy by victory. The defeated king would have to sacrifice his life, making a place for another king or ruler. So Maharaj Yudhishthira also dispatched such challenging horses all over the world. And every ruling prince and king all over the world accepted Maharaj Yudhishthira's leadership as the emperor of the world. After this, all rulers of the world under the regime of Maharaj Yudhishthira were invited to participate in the great sacrificial ceremony of Rajasuya. Such performances required hundreds of millions of dollars, and it was not an easy job for a petty king. Such a sacrificial ceremony, being too expensive and also difficult to perform under present circumstances, is now impossible in this age of Kali, nor can anyone secure the required expert priesthood to take charge of the ceremony. So, after being invited, all the kings and great learned sages of the world assembled in the capital of Maharaj Yudhishthira. The learned society, including the great philosophers, religionists, physicians, scientists, and all great sages, was invited. That is to say, the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas were the topmost leading men in society, and they were all invited to participate in the assembly. The Vaishyas and Sudras were unimportant elements in society, and they are not mentioned herein. Due to the change of social activities in the modern age, the importance of men has also changed in terms of occupational positions. So, in that great assembly, Lord Sri Krishna was the cynosure of neighboring eyes. Everyone wanted to see Lord Krishna, and everyone wanted to pay his humble respects to the Lord. Bhishma Dev remembered all this and was glad that his worshipful Lord, the personality of Godhead, was present before him in his actual formal presence. So to meditate on the Supreme Lord, is to meditate on the activities, forms, pastimes, name, and fame of the Lord. That is easier than what is imagined as meditation on the impersonal feature of the Supreme. In the Bhagavad Gita 12.5, it is clearly stated that to meditate upon the impersonal feature of the Supreme is very difficult. It is practically no meditation or simply a waste of time, because very seldom is the desired result obtained. The devotees, however, meditate upon the Lord's factual form and pastimes, and therefore the Lord is easily approachable by the devotees. This is also stated in the Bhagavad Gita 12.9. The Lord is non-different from his transcendental activities. It is indicated also in this shloka that Lord Sri Krishna, while actually present before human society, especially in connection with the Battle of Kurukshetra, was accepted as the greatest personality of the time, although he might not have been recognized as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The propaganda that a very great man is worshipped as God after his death is misleading, because a man after his death cannot be made into God, nor can the personality of Godhead be a human being, even when he is personally present. Both ideas are misconceptions. The idea of anthropomorphism cannot be applicable in the case of Lord Krishna. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I'll just read the translation one more time. So the translation reads, at the Rajasuya Yajna sacrifice performed by Maharaj Yudhishthira, there was the greatest assembly of all the elite men of the world, the royal and learned orders, and in that great assembly, Lord Sri Krishna was worshipped by one and all as the most exalted personality of Godhead. This happened during my presence, and I remembered the incident in order to keep my mind upon the Lord. So we're continuing with Bhishma Dev's prayers. Bhishma Dev's sharing with all of the assembled devotees, including Maharaj Yudhishthira, and he's reaching the end of his sharing. Actually, in these last, maybe a couple verses ago, he stated that, now at this time of my death, I wish to fix my mind completely on Krishna. And so he's spoken on many topics up until this point, but now coming to the end of his life, he's making it very clear that he wants to fix his complete focus on Krishna. And so in these last few verses, being shared by Bhishma Dev, we're hearing about his meditation on Krishna, his very specific meditation on Krishna's form. And Srila Prabhupada speaks a few points in this purport that I wanted to highlight. One thing that he introduces this purport with is explaining the circumstances that Bhishma Dev is speaking about. So after the Battle of Kurukshetra, after any major battle like this where a new king takes to the throne, then what they would do is they would send out challenge horses all across the world. And if there was any other rulers in the world that were wishing to oppose the new ruler, then they would have to fight. And this being Maharaj Yudhishthira, so if Maharaj Yudhishthira were to defeat them, then that king would be killed and a new king would take their place under the rule of Maharaj Yudhishthira. So of course, Maharaj Yudhishthira was widely accepted as a worthy ruler. So there was no challenge from that. So after having done so, Maharaj Yudhishthira held a Rajasuya sacrifice. And so many exalted personalities, great kings from all over the world assembled there for this sacrifice. And Prabhupada briefly explains how doing this type of sacrifice in today's day and age is impossible for two main reasons. One being that we simply don't have, no single ruler has that level of opulence that is required for such a sacrifice. And also there are no, purohits, there's no yajna performers that are qualified to perform such a sacrifice. So this is Prabhupada's explanation of this circumstance that Bhishma is speaking about. And then, but what was really beautiful that I wanted to highlight was that so many amazing personalities are, they appear for this Rajasuya sacrifice. But Prabhupada says this statement, he says that in that great assembly, Lord Sri Krishna was the cynosure of neighboring eyes. Everyone wanted to see Lord Krishna, and everyone wanted to pay his humble respects to the Lord. This word cynosure, I'm going to look it up just to make sure I'm understanding it correctly. It means a person or thing that is the center or attention or of attention or admiration. So Krishna was the complete center of attention. This is Maharaj Yudhishthira's event. But of course, Krishna being present there, he became the natural center of attention. And everyone present found him to be extremely capturing, very beautiful. And Prabhupada explains that even at that time, actually, Krishna was not understood as being the Supreme Personality of Godhead to everyone. There were many people who were seeing Krishna, but they did not know him as God. But that didn't prevent them from being aware of his beauty and his glory. And so even despite not understanding that he's God, they were still able to understand that he is a very great personality, actually the greatest personality present. And so this is what Bhishma Dev is meditating upon. And this meditation on Krishna's name. So then Prabhupada goes on to explain how meditation on Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes is easier than meditation on his impersonal feature. And even if we think of that just on a practical level, to meditate on the impersonal feature of the Lord is a very challenging thing, because we understand even just to try to clear the mind of its contents is basically impossible for us. We have to be thinking about something or the other at any given moment. And so naturally, to follow the practice of jnana that is required to really realize the impersonal feature of the Lord is very difficult. So Prabhupada is again supporting this point that meditation on Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes is easier than meditation on his impersonal feature. And he quotes Bhagavad Gita 12.5. I'll just read that verse real quick. Kleshodika tarastesham avyakta shakta chetasam avyakta hi gadir dukam dehavadvir avapyate. Translation. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. So all of us are embodied, and this form of meditation on the impersonal Brahman is very difficult. And we understand how by meditating on Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes, we're able to engage our mind, and the mind needs to be engaged in some way. So by giving these topics of Krishna the central focus in our mind, that is the way that one can positively engage the mind. And this is what Bhishma Dev is doing. He's expressing his gratitude for being able to remember this Krishna in this circumstance. And this is just another pastime of the Lord, Krishna being present at the Rajasuya sacrifice of Yudhishthira Maharaj. So he keeps this, he says, this happened during my presence, and I remember the incident in order to keep my mind upon the Lord. So that's, this is the real crux of this purport. And I wanted to share just one other thing before we have some comments or questions. I just recently read this chapter from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antilila, chapter 11, which is describing the passing of Haridas Thakur. And Haridas Thakur, actually, in that section, his passing away is likened to the passing away of Bhishma Dev. And so it's very beautiful. So I thought I would just read a small portion of that, just so we can see that parallel in Haridas Thakur's life, and then we can open it up for any comments or questions there may be. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda. So again, this is Antilila, chapter 11. One day, Govinda, the personal servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, went in great jubilation to deliver the remnants of Lord Jagannath's food to Haridas Thakur. When Govinda came to Haridas, he saw that Haridas Thakur was lying on his back and chanting his rounds very slowly. Please rise and take your Mahaprasadam, Govinda said. I have not finished chanting my regular number of rounds. How then can I eat? But you have brought Mahaprasadam, and how can I neglect it? Saying this, he offered prayers to the Mahaprasadam, took a little portion, and ate it. The next day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Haridas's place and inquired from him, Haridas, are you well? Haridas offered his obeisances to the Lord and replied, my body is all right, but my mind and intelligence are not well. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu further inquired from Haridas, can you ascertain what your disease is? Now that you have become old, the Lord said, you may reduce the number of rounds you chant daily. You are already liberated, and therefore you need not follow the regulative principles very strictly. Your role in this incarnation is to deliver the people in general. You have sufficiently preached the glories of the holy name in this world. The Lord concluded, now therefore, please reduce the fixed number of times you chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. I was born in an inferior family and my body is most abominable. I always engage in low work. Therefore, I am the lowest, most condemned of men. I am unseeable and untouchable, but you have accepted me as your servant. This means that you have delivered me from a hellish condition and raised me to the Vaikuntha platform. My dear Lord, you are the fully independent personality of Godhead. You act by your own free will. You cause the whole world to dance and act as you like. My dear Lord, by your mercy, you have made me dance in many ways. For example, I was offered the Shraddha Patra, which should have been offered to first-class brahmanas. I ate from it even though I was born in a family of meat eaters. I have had one desire for a very long time. I think that quite soon, my Lord, you will bring to a close your pastimes within this material world. I wish that you not show me this closing chapter of your pastimes. Before that time comes, kindly let my body fall down in your presence. I wish to catch your lotus-like feet upon my heart and see your moon-like face. With my tongue I shall chant your holy name, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. That is my desire. Kindly let me give up my body in this way. O most merciful Lord, if by your mercy it is possible to kindly, O most merciful Lord, if by your mercy it is possible, kindly grant my desire. Let this low-born body fall down before you. You can make possible this perfection of all my desires. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, my dear Haridas, Krishna is so merciful that he must execute whatever you want. But whatever happens is mine, is all due to your association. Whatever happiness is mine is all due to your association. It is not fitting for you to go away and leave me behind. Catching the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Haridas Thakur said, my Lord, do not create an illusion. Although I am so fallen, you must certainly show me this mercy. My Lord, there are many respectable personalities, millions of devotees who are fit to sit on my head. They are all helpful in your pastimes. My Lord, if an insignificant insect like me dies, what is the loss? If an ant dies, where is the loss to the material world? My Lord, you are always affectionate to your devotees. I am just an imitation devotee, but nevertheless, I wish that you fulfill my desire. That is my expectation. Because he had to perform his noon duties, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got up to leave, but it was settled that the following day, after he saw Lord Jagannath, he would return to visit Haridas Thakur. After embracing him, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left to perform his noon duties and went to the sea to take his bath. The next morning, after visiting the Jagannath temple, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, accompanied by all his devotees, went hastily to see Haridas Thakur. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the devotees came before Haridas Thakur, who offered his respects to the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the Vaishnavas. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inquired, "My dear Haridas, what is the news?" And then Prabhupada adds in his purport that Haridas Thakur replied, "My Lord, whatever mercy you can bestow upon me." So then Lord Chaitanya says, then continuing, upon hearing this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately began great congregational chanting in the courtyard. Prakeshwar Pandit was the chief dancer. Headed by Swarup Damodar Goswami, all the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu surrounded Haridas Thakur and began congregational chanting. In front of all the great devotees like Ramananda Rai and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to describe the holy attributes of Haridas Thakur. As he described the transcendental attributes of Haridas Thakur, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu seemed to possess 5 mouths. The more he described, the more his great happiness increased. After hearing of the transcendental qualities of Haridas Thakur, all the devotees present were struck with wonder. They all offered their respectful obeisances to the lotus feet of Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur made Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sit down in front of him, and then he fixed his eyes like 2 bumblebees on the lotus face of the Lord. He held the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on his heart, and then took the dust of the feet of all the devotees present and put it on his head. He began to chant the holy name of Sri Krishna Chaitanya again and again. As he drank the sweetness of the face of the Lord, tears constantly glided down from his eyes. While chanting the holy name of Sri Krishna Chaitanya, he gave up his air of life and left his body. Seeing the wonderful death of Haridas Thakur by his own will, which was just like a great mystic yogi's, everyone remembered the passing away of Bhishma. There was a tumultuous noise as they all chanted the holy names, Hari and Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became overwhelmed with ecstatic love. The Lord raised the body of Haridas Thakur and placed it on his lap. Then he began to dance in the courtyard in great ecstatic love. Because of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic love, all the devotees were helpless, and in ecstatic love, they also began to dance and chant congregationally. So I'll stop there. 2 things I just want to highlight are that, one is none of us are probably very accomplished in yogic performance, so we may not have the ability to leave our body at our own will, the way that Haridas Thakur and Bhishma Dev are able to do. And secondly, we may not have Krishna physically present before us the way that Krishna was present before Bhishma Dev or Lord Chaitanya was present before Haridas Thakur. We may, but these examples are very beautiful and very glorious, and we can see that at the end of their lifetime, Bhishma Dev, Haridas Thakur, their focus was completely zoomed in on Krishna. Literally, they only had eyes for Krishna at the time of death. So this is a beautiful example for us to follow. And this is why we practice Krishna consciousness all throughout our lives, so that we can have a chance of remembering Krishna at the time of death. So I will stop there. If there are any comments or questions that anyone has, please feel free, or corrections, definitely. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Mukunda Prabhu. Thank you so much for the description of the purport and also reading this section. It's very, very touching. Just enhancing what we have been hearing about Bhishmadev. Just one thought came, Prabhu, as you were describing about this impersonal meditation. We were describing it's very difficult. I was just thinking about chanting, though we hear it is a personal form and it is non-different from Krishna. Just this thought came to my mind, like at my stage, though I hear and try to understand, but it's really theoretical and it is so impersonal. As we are hearing, it is very difficult. I know it's not the same as meditating on the impersonal Brahman, but just want to hear some thoughts. I know we have been hearing in many, many japa retreats and Festival of Holy Name, but just want to hear some thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Actually, today morning when I was chanting, I was also thinking about how, I just finished reading Satchidananda Swami's The Living Name, and he's providing so many pointers throughout his book, both in regards to physical posture, many things that you can do with the physical body to help concentrate, things that you can do with the mind to help concentrate, breathing, and all of these, so many techniques, right? But then at the end of his book, he says, and he explains very clearly that ultimately you actually can't do anything to make Krishna appear in your meditation, because it's Krishna's will that it's only by Krishna's will that he will appear in our meditation. So when I was thinking about that today morning, I was kind of reflecting on how I actually can't do anything. I can't sit more straight or breathe more deeply or, do any other technique to call Krishna into my meditation. All I can try to do is hear my chanting and reflect on any remembrance of Krishna's pastimes that I can recall while chanting, because that's the I agree that just through the chanting, it can be kind of impersonal, especially when we're not at a more perfected stage. So I don't know what techniques work for. I'm sure everybody here could share different techniques that work for them, but I like to think that this, in one sense, the simpler the better, especially when it comes to chanting Hare Krishna, because when we try to think too much about the different ways that I can draw my mind into control, then it becomes a little bit mechanical. And as we hear, to hear the names and to hear the pastimes and glories and topics related to Krishna, we should be hearing it so much that it starts to flood our consciousness, whether we like it or not. So that's kind of the only, pointer that I would give, I guess. That's what I'm trying to follow for myself. So the more hearing we do, the more that we'll be able to recall while we chant.
Hare Krishna. I recently was hearing a couple of classes in which it was repeatedly, I heard this, that the degree to which Krishna wants to reveal himself, that is the degree to which we will be able to see Krishna. So the effort is on our side, and yet the degree to which he wants to reveal himself. So techniques are there. And even recently when Maharaj was speaking, he was mentioning that techniques can help only so much, because beyond the technique is the desire on our part to connect with Krishna. And that kind of indicates that ultimately it all boils down to, our deep desire, the intensity of the desire to connect with Krishna. And that cannot be artificially done. It has to naturally happen. Artificially, Krishna is there within our heart. He can really see, if this is some kind of an intellectual circus that we are going through, or is it really genuine feeling of that genuine desire to reach Krishna, to reach out, and then naturally there is the reciprocation. So the connection with Krishna, that is the point here. How do you connect? And that genuine connection, that desire to have that pleases the Lord. And as a result, there is that reciprocation which is coming, which is that is the mercy, and that is the grace. I was repeatedly hearing this from many lectures recently.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you both for sharing. Yeah, it was really helpful, particularly for these techniques. I have been thinking whenever we hear something new, I'm like, okay, I'm going to try. And it seemed to be working, probably some newness or freshness. It seemed to be working to focus, to get the mind back to the holy name. But after some time, Prabhu, as you mentioned, it just becomes mechanical and, kind of routine. Thank you, Mataji, for bringing that aspect. It's really that underlying connection that matters. The techniques and everything is just on the surface to help us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. Prabhuji, I want to share one thing that I heard, because you beautifully narrated Chaitanya Charitamrita. And then I have a question. I'll say ahead, the question is not clear in my mind, but maybe with your help, I can get some clarity and maybe an understanding of it. The first thing I wanted to share was just today morning, I was listening to a narration on Chaitanya Charitamrita, and the narrator was sharing something that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said. He said, if this whole world is drowning, meaning there's a pralaya, and if this whole world is drowning, and you are able to swim, just hold on to Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Charitamrita. And if you get tired, you can leave Bhagavad Gita. And then if you get even more tired, you can leave Bhagavatam, but hold on to Chaitanya Charitamrita, because when you reach the safe destination, the whole scriptures can be revived from Chaitanya Charitamrita. I thought that it was very timely, because of your narration, and I think it kind of helped my appreciation for Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yes, my question, Prabhuji, when you explained how during the Rajasuya Yagna, all these great kings, they were very eager to get the darshan of the Lord. So that means they are all aware that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they wanted his darshan, right? And I think we see in many pastimes. So when again, like I said, the question is not 100% clear, but the point I'm trying to understand is, if Krishna was around, and we know that Krishna, devotional service to Krishna is the ultimate. End of the day, I think everybody left the yagna and went to do their own things. And sometimes, as we perform devotional service, there is an urgency for us every time we say, we have to go back to Godhead, we have to go back to Godhead. So always I think, if Krishna really came to live with us, what would we do?
Yeah, sorry, were you going to say anything else?
No, Prabhuji, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, well, actually, Prabhupada explains in this purport, he says that it is indicated also in this shloka that Lord Sri Krishna, while actually present before human society, especially in connection with the battle of Kurukshetra, was accepted as the greatest personality of the time, although he may not have been recognized as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Prabhupada actually is explaining here that all of these kings and all the warriors and everyone, they recognized Krishna as the greatest personality, but they did not all recognize him as God. So, and I've also heard this explanation that, sometimes the challenge comes well, if God wants me to believe that he exists, then why doesn't he just appear and then I will believe? But the retort to that challenge is that if God were to appear before you, would you know that he was God? He may appear as a great personality. You know, it's like it's like if you were in the association of, I don't know, Mahatma Gandhi or something, Martin Luther King. Everyone in that space, if there's 1 million people in a room with Mahatma Gandhi, they will all realize that Mahatma Gandhi is the most respectable person in that room. But so in a similar way, Krishna may be recognized like that, but he will not be recognized as God by anyone other than his devotees. So that's kind of the challenge, really, is that we need to become worthy to see Krishna as the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, we are just like any one of these kings that, you know, if Krishna were to be present before us, we would just see him as some great personality, but not as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I don't know if that kind of addresses what you were speaking on, but that's just what came to mind, that not everyone recognizes Krishna as God, even when he's present on this, you know, physically present when he was there at the Battle of Kurukshetra.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I think that was beautifully explained. It's coming clear to me a little bit, little by little. Maybe I'll reiterate in the way I understand. So if I put myself in the shoes of these kings, while I may know theoretically that Krishna is the personality of Godhead, I would potentially behave just like these kings, that seeing him as a great personality. I mean, and I was just thinking about it, you know, the deity form of the rod is right in front of us. At some moments we recognize it as the Supreme Lord, but the next moment we forget that he is the Supreme Lord.
Yeah, exactly.
No. Thank you, Prabhuji. I think that was beautiful. Yeah, beautifully put. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Mukunda, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Guru Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. Just Mohan Leela Prabhu's question. I always used to wonder what is Mahabali, how is he able to stay inside his palace or enjoy his life? Mahabali is his doorkeeper. So I used to think it is a very embarrassing thing if the Lord becomes, you know, he is standing there as your doorkeeper. What would Mahabali do there inside the palace? I am thinking. You know, it is very similar thought I used to have.
Yeah. You see, Mahabali is Bali Maharaj, yeah?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Any final comments or questions?
Thank you so much, Prabhu. One other point I was hearing, I heard recently to Mohan Lal Prabhu's question. So, one is that even great personalities like Duryodhana, right? She was thinking that Krishna is some big magician. So Duryodhana is also a great person. From that point of view, and Krishna is thinking, okay, maybe a little bit more, more. He has more magic, right? He can do more things.
Yeah.
So, but he was not thinking. Second thing, I'm remembering what happens if Varahadev appears in front of us.
Yeah.
So we will think that he's a big pig, right? We will not think that he's a supreme Lord, because if we don't have that understanding, or if we don't have that devotion or thing, so we will not be able to recognize that he's the Lord, right? So either Varahadev or Narsinghadev, so we will not be able to know that he is the Supreme Lord. So for that, actually, what we need to have that understanding about the scriptures. The qualities of the Lord and the different ways that he can appear. So by that way, actually, by studying the scriptures and having that knowledge, hearing from pure devotees, we'll be able to recognize as we move forward. That's what I was.
Right. And of course, there's the aspect of seeing Krishna in relation to where we are, and I was just remembering this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 43, Text 17. It says, the various groups of people in the arena. This is Krishna when he's about to come to kill Kamsa. And so when he enters the arena, there are so many different groups of people present. And so the translation reads that the various groups of people in the arena regarded Krishna in different ways when he entered it with his elder brother. The wrestlers saw Krishna as a lightning bolt, the men of Mathura as the best of males, the women as Cupid in person, the cowherd men as their relative, the impious rulers as a chastiser, his parents as their child, the king of the Bojas as death, the unintelligent as the Supreme Lord's universal form, the yogis as the absolute truth, and the Vrishnis as their supreme worshipable deity. And then, I can add myself as, I wouldn't see him at all. So, this is how it works. Everyone, Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead across the board, but look how all these different people are seeing Krishna. So, yeah, thank you for sharing.
One thing that Chaitanya Charitamrita reading, thank you so much, Prabhu. A lot of times, we hear that Vishnudev is like, right, same as like Haridas Thakur, but yes, it was other way. Yeah. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
I really want to say thank you. One word that you just spoke really struck a big realization in me. When you said, serving Krishna in and knowing our relationship with him, I think that is a big eye-opener for me right now. I'll tell you why, right? When Lingaraju Prabhu was sharing how we recognize Krishna, my next question was going to be, let us say we recognize Krishna, and Krishna is right in front of us. What service should I do, right? Because if he's there 24/7 around us, what would we do, right? I think when you pointed out that recognizing our service in relationship to Krishna, now I'm connecting the dots where the acharyas explain that when you do enough sadhana, you would understand your Siddha Swarupa, meaning what is your eternal relationship with Krishna. So that means then you won't have a problem in identifying what is your service to Krishna.
Yeah.
So when Krishna is around 24/7 with you, you are so fixed in your relation, in your Siddha Swarupa, that you are able to engage in that specific service that is designated to you.
Right.
I think this is a realization that has come out of this conversation. I think I'm very grateful to you, and I think I never connected these dots. I'm really happy that I'm able to connect the dots today.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Mukunda Prabhu, very nice discussion, very nice class. I was thinking, I don't know, I'll have an opportunity to see Krishna in my life anyway, but I can see Krishna in Hare Krishna Kirtan, because whenever I hear Kirtan, I completely engross myself. Sometimes I feel that there is some presence in that holy name. In this age of Kali, of course, that is our Harinam Sankirtan, Kali Yuga avatar is the holy name. So at this point of time, I was thinking, there is no point I can see Krishna. Maybe I can see him in the deity form, but still I cannot realize. But somehow, holy name touches everybody's heart. See the gathering in any of the sadhu sangha, anybody for that matter, everybody is in ecstasy, jumping, dancing. Whether you know that kirtan or doesn't matter, right? So there will just be ecstasy. So that's the presence of Krishna's holy name. And just thought like that, Prabhu. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm in the same boat. I feel like the one aspect of Krishna consciousness that allows me to come closest to a semblance of experiencing Krishna is Kirtan. And so it's no wonder that this is this is the occupation of the age of Kali, is Nam Sankirtan. So Thank you for sharing that. Okay, if there are no any other comments or questions, then I think we can wrap up there. Thank you all so much for sharing. And
If the Prabhu is saying something.
oh,
No, nothing, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Mukunda Prabhu, thank you very much for such a beautiful class, and I really appreciate your reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita. That was wonderful, and the discussion that went ahead after the class was really wonderful. Thank you very much for to each and every one of you for sharing your realizations. Hare Krishna.
thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Thank you all. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Haribol.